After the anointing, the king is invested with a whole series of additional garments that go over the top of the surcoat. Again with this, just for the sake of physical comfort in the warmth of a May morning, I think an admiral's uniform would be impractical for our 75-year-old king. The king is firstly dressed in a white robe called the Colobium Sindonis that covers his surcoat and falls to his ankles. The name of this garment means sleeveless tunic of fine linen, and it's a tube of linen with armholes. It's a bit like the white baptismal robe that catechumens in the early church wore and the albs that priests wear to celebrate the Mass. And it probably derives from the alb, as the other garments then added over it are also priestly. They are sacerdotal in character. Over the top of the Colobium Sindonis, the sovereign wears a garment called the supertunica, which means the overtunic. All these fancy names just describe what these garments are, not what they mean. The supertunica is made of cloth of gold, and it's possible that this garment originates in a tunic that once belonged to Edward the Confessor and was therefore a holy relic. In form, the supertunica looks like the vestments called dalmatics and tunicals, which in the Middle Ages were worn by subdeacons, deacons, and also bishops under their chasubles, their mass vestments. The supertunica is girded at the waist with a belt. The present supertunica was made for the coronation of George V in 1911. Over the top of this, the sovereign is invested with another garment, the long, narrow, scarf-like vestment called a stole. This too is a sacerdotal garment worn only by priests and bishops. The king in May has a few stoles to choose from, as it was the tradition to have a new one made for every coronation, and indeed a new one might be made. This is the one used at the coronation of George VI in 1937. So when the sovereign is crowned, in the traditional medieval understanding, an understanding that still continues to the present day, kings are given a quasi-priestly role, and these three garments reflect that. At their anointing and at their garbing in these robes, they are set apart as God's vicegerent on earth. The last garment placed over the top of all of these is the coronation mantle, referred to in the coronation rite as the imperial robe. It's again made of cloth of gold. The present coronation mantle was made for the coronation of George IV in 1821 and is embroidered with emblems of England, Scotland and Ireland, the rose, the thistle and the shamrock. However, after the coronation of Queen Victoria, this mantle was snaffled by the Dean and Canons of Westminster as a perquisite, and then it completely disappeared. When King Edward VII was crowned in 1902, they therefore had to make a new mantle. When the 1821 mantle reappeared later in the decade, it was acquired by the Crown, and George V, George VI and Elizabeth II have all worn it at their coronation. So the king has a choice of two mantles to wear in May. Wearing all these garments, dressed as a priest king, the king will then be invested with all the regalia. He will be crowned and then enthroned. Some words on why this mantle is called the imperial robe. It's important to note that English kings since the later Middle Ages have considered themselves to be emperors and to hold the imperial dignity. What that means politically is that the kings of England understood themselves to be totally independent and not under the overlordship of any other king or emperor, that they were equal to any emperor on earth. And this mantle, which is worn by our kings in imitation of the robes worn by other emperors, expresses that claim visually to imperial status and dignity. Now, if you want to know more about the concept of England as an empire, watch my video on the imperial state crown, where I go into some depth on that subject. It is important to stress that this form of dress and this concept of the English king, the British monarch as an emperor, goes back to the late Middle Ages and to medieval English kings and long predates the now defunct British Empire. No claims are being made at the coronation of our sovereign that our sovereign has colonial imperial power. I've decided to publish a special coronation issue of the Antiquary magazine. This is an addition to the general monthly issue. I have a large collection of really interesting old photographs that I've been collecting over the years of the coronations of George V, George VI and Elizabeth II. And to celebrate the King's coronation in May, this issue will be a special album looking back at the coronations of the 20th century. There is a link in the description and above to the website where you can pre-order a copy before the publishing date in early May.